Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. It's March 22nd, 2026. Reading from A Child's Life of Christ, Chapter 4, The Samaritan Woman. Jesus heals the nobleman's son, teaches in the synagogue at Nazareth, stilling the tempest, curing the demoniac. The Pharisees in Jerusalem were very angry with Jesus because many people, seeing the wonders that he did, believed on him. They would not love him themselves because he reproved their pride and did not teach the things that they did. Jesus, seeing their dislike to him, said to his disciples, "We will go back to Galilee and leave Jerusalem for a little time." It would take 3 days to go from Jerusalem to Galilee, straight through the country of Samaria, and this was the road that Jesus now took. When they came near a city of Samaria called Sychar or Shechem, Jesus sat down by the well outside the city. He was very tired and hot and thirsty, so he rested there while his disciples went into the city to buy some food. It was about 12 o'clock at noon when a woman came to the well to draw some water and saw Jesus sitting there alone. He asked her for some water. She gave it, but said, "How is it that you ask me to give you water? For you are a Jew, and I am a woman of Samaria." The proud Jews are not willing to take anything from the despised Samaritans. Jesus said, You do not know who I am. I have taken some water from you, but if you knew me, you would ask me to give you some ever-springing living water. "Sir," said she, "how do you get this water? You have no pitcher with you to draw it up, and the well is deep." Jesus said, "I am not speaking of the water at the bottom of this well, for those who drink of this water will thirst again, but he that drinks of the water that I will give shall never thirst, for it shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life." The woman was glad to hear of water, ever fresh, ever springing up, which she could always carry with her. There would be no need, then, for weary, hot, dusty walks from the city to the well. Not to thirst again. What a delightful thought, in that hot country. She did not quite understand yet that it was not real water that Jesus was speaking about. It was life in the soul he meant. Jesus then went on talking to the woman about her past life. She said, "Sir, you must be a prophet to know so much about me, for you have never seen me before." Jesus told her he was more than a prophet. He was the Messiah, the Christ, promised to the world so long ago. The woman then left her pitcher and ran back to the city to tell her neighbors that she had found the promised Christ. While she was gone, the disciples, who had by this time come back from Sychar with the food they had bought, said, "Master, why do you not eat?" They had left Jesus hungry and tired, and now he did not seem to notice the food they offered him. They thought that perhaps someone had given him something to eat. He then explained to them that he had been so busy that he had forgotten his hunger. It was meat and drink to him to do his heavenly Father's will. The woman came back again, and many more people, and they asked Jesus if he would stay in their city a little while. Jesus stopped 2 days, teaching them and answering their questions. And the people said to the woman, "Now we believe, not because of what you have said, for we have heard him ourselves, and we know that this is indeed the Christ, the Savior of the world." After 2 days, Jesus and his disciples left Sychar and continued their journey to Galilee. There was great sorrow in the house of a nobleman at Capernaum, for one of his children was very ill. In vain did the doctors come, for no medicine would cure him, and the parents in deep grief watched the progress of the fever. At last someone said, "Jesus of Nazareth has returned from Jerusalem. He is now at Cana. Perhaps he will make the child well." Cana was not far from Capernaum, so the nobleman said, "I will go at once to Jesus and see if he will come here to heal my son." He soon found Jesus, for his fame was very great, and he begged him very earnestly to go back with him at once to Capernaum before the child was dead. He believed that when Jesus saw him, he could cure him, but he thought if the child was dead, then even he could do nothing. Jesus now showed the nobleman that he had more power than he thought. God had put into the hands of his son power to do any miracle. Jesus could make the child well again if he stayed at Cana just as easily as if he went to Capernaum and saw him. He said to the father, "Go home, your son is cured." The nobleman believed that Jesus had cured his son when he spake these words, so he turned to go home again. On the way back to Capernaum, he met some of his servants, who were bringing him the good news that his son was better. "When did he begin to get well?" the father asked. They replied, "Yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him." The father knew that that was the exact time when Jesus had told him his son should live. Now he knew that Jesus could do anything. He and all his family, when they saw the kindness and power of Jesus in sending health to this sick child, knew that he must be the Son of God. The fame of Jesus now grew exceedingly. They who had sick friends brought them to Jesus, and he healed them all. No disease was too bad. No one had been ill too long for Jesus to cure. You would have thought that all men would have loved him, but they did not. About this time Jesus went to Nazareth, where he had spent his childhood and youth. The people there had heard of his miracles, and all eyes were turned on him one Sabbath day when he entered the synagogue, or Jewish place of worship. He took the roll of parchment on which the prophecies were written, which they handed to him to read aloud to them. He unrolled the scroll and read from Isaiah. It was where the prophet was telling how in time to come God would send Messiah to preach good news to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to set the captives free, to give sight to the blind. After Jesus had read these words, he closed the scroll and sat down. Everyone looked up in astonishment and in silence. Jesus then said, "I am the Messiah of whom the prophet speaks. I am come for the very purpose to set men free from the power of Satan and from habits of sin. I am come to bring light to the minds of men by teaching them about God. I am come to speak words of pardon and comfort to those who are sorry for their sin." At first all who heard Jesus speak wondered very much that a man whom they had known from a little child should say that he came to do these great things. They said, "Is he not the son of Joseph? We cannot believe him." One evening Jesus said that he should like to cross over to the other side of the lake. Then he and his disciples and a few more men went into a ship. All at once a strong wind began to blow, and the water became very rough. Now the waves get stronger and stronger and rise higher and higher till they dash over the little ship. The wind roars, and a black tempest darkens the sky. Though the men on board were used to the sea, they could not manage the vessel in this terrible storm. The waves began to fill the ship with water, and in great alarm the disciples went to Jesus. Where was he all this time? He was fast asleep. He was very tired, for he had been teaching a great many people all day long, and as soon as he got into the ship, he went to the farther end of it and laid his head upon a pillow, and the movement of the vessel soon rocked him to sleep. The noise of the wind and the waves had not awakened him, but he awoke at once when he heard the voice of his disciples asking his help. "Master, Master," they cried, "we perish. Do you not care for us? O Lord, save us." He rose at once and said to the wind, "Be still." And then he turned to the waves and said, "Be still." Excuse me. And the noisy wind heard the calm voice above all its roar, and was hushed to stillness. And the raging waves listened to the commands of their Lord and Master, and became smooth and quiet. The angry storm, at one word from Jesus, changed to a great calm. The men in the ship feared exceedingly. Who could he be? Who could make even the wind and the sea obey his voice? They might well say that God alone could do that. Jesus is God as well as man, and that is why all things in nature owned his power. When Jesus had quieted the fears of his disciples, he greatly reproved them for their want of faith in him. "Why were you afraid, O ye of little faith?" he said. "You should have believed that I would have taken care of you. I knew that you were tossed about, though I was asleep." It is not only raging seas that Jesus calms, he can still the angry passions of men too. Have you never felt something like a storm within you, when conscience begged you not to yield to the power of evil habits, when a sudden wish to do wrong was met by the thought, how can I thus sin? In that hour of strife, thought, how can I thus sin? In that hour of strife between good and evil, turn to Jesus and ask his help. He will send a calm, for the evil will flee at his presence and leave you strong for good. You will often read in the New Testament about Jesus curing people who were possessed with devils. We can hardly tell you what this sad disease was that Jesus cured. It seemed to be a kind of madness in which people lost their senses and fancied that an evil spirit lived within them, making them do dreadful things. A poor man who was thus afflicted lived at the little town at which Jesus landed after he had stilled the tempest. This poor man lived among the dreary gravestones and old tombs of the wilderness. He was very fierce, and men were afraid to pass by the place where he was. It was no use to chain him, for he broke his chains to pieces and got loose again. There he was all day and all night in lonely places, crying out and cutting himself with stones. Hearing the noise of the landing of the vessel, he turned and saw Jesus and his disciples come out of the ship. He ran to meet Jesus and fell down at his feet and cried very loud. Jesus told the evil spirits to come out of the man. The evil spirits said, What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come to punish us before the judgment day? Jesus now spoke to the man and said, What is your name? The devils would not let the man speak. They answered their name was Legion, which means many. They said to Jesus, Do not make us leave the man, but if you do cast us out, let us go into the swine that are feeding on the hills. Jesus now spoke to the evil spirits and told them they might go. Then the devils went out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd ran down the mountainside into the sea and were drowned. The man was now quite cured and could listen to Jesus. He was in his right mind. He felt so loving and grateful to Jesus for making him well that he wished to follow him everywhere. Jesus said, No, go to your home and tell all your friends what great things God hath done for you. The people who saw this wonderful cure were afraid of Jesus and begged him to go away. Did they suppose the gentle Jesus ever harmed anyone? His power was always used for mercy. It was only used against disease and sin and evil. At another time, a poor man was brought to Jesus who was troubled with an evil spirit that made him deaf and dumb. Jesus told the devil to leave the man, and he did so. When he was gone, the poor man could both hear and speak. All who saw the cure wondered and said, This Jesus must be the Son of God. The Pharisees did not like to hear Jesus praised, for they hated him, and were wicked enough to say that his great power was given to him by Satan. It is by the help of the evil one that he casts out devils. Jesus told them that Satan would not cast out Satan, that evil would not fight against evil. Evil could not do good, and good could come only from God. If, he said, it is thus God's power that cures these poor people, then is God very near to you? And I warn you to believe my teachings. But the Pharisees only hated Jesus the more because they knew he spoke the truth. That's the end of chapter 4. Reading. Please have a great and wonderful day. Be blessed. Keep coming back.